Spiritual Direction from Dante, Avoiding the Inferno. A book by Father Paul Pearson of the Oratory. Canto 34. Topics: the overwhelming emptiness of evil, the futility of rebellion, self-inflicted punishment, the disappointing spectacle of evil, the inescapable providence of God, the imprisoning burden of sin. Explaining the existence of evil was one of the great philosophical challenges. If everything that exists is somehow good, then what is evil? Evil must not be a something, but an absence of good, technically a privation. Physical evil or suffering is perhaps the easiest to picture. The blind man suffers because he is missing something human beings expect to have: vision. Blindness is an absence of a good that should be present. Moral evil is the absence of the good that comes from our actions being ordered to reason. The more profound the evil, the greater the lack. As we approach evil in its purest form, we are encountering not a great and powerful being, but an overwhelming absence. If God in his goodness is the fullness of being, evil is emptiness. In line 1, we enter the pit of hell, Judica, called so after Judas, accompanied by an almost liturgical note, with Virgil reciting a parody of Vexilla Regis, a hymn for Holy Week. We thus return to the idea of hell as an inversion of the city of God, a sort of anti-heaven. The giants and titans are like the angels who worship God in heaven. The frozen lake reminds us of the saints casting their crowns down upon the glassy sea, as in the hymn Holy, 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 referring to Revelation 15:2. And whereas heaven is filled with songs of praise, hell is relatively silent, turning in upon itself and barren. This direct contrast between hell and heaven will continue throughout this canto. In line 4, we are in the depths of the region of the fraudulent. And one of Dante's recurring themes in this part of hell is that nothing is quite what it seems to be. Remembering the giants and titans at the edge of the pit of hell, whom Dante thought were towers, now he sees what appears to be an enormous windmill and tries to hide from the frigid wind it produces. And regardless of what it is that Dante sees, the cold it produces is overwhelming, symbolizing a complete lack of love, but also, to use the imagery of science, a lack of activity. Heat comes from motion. God is pure activity. By turning away from God, those who choose evil are left frozen, static, unmoving, unchanging. The only vague sign of life turns out to be the most automatic motion that produces this frigid wind. The punishment here is more complete than in previous rings. Here is punished the sin of betraying a benefactor, literally, someone who has acted well towards us, and as a result, someone to whom we owe a debt of gratitude. The sin is therefore a double one, both betrayal and ingratitude, a rejection of the good actions of others towards us. This most extreme example of the freezing of the human heart is punished by the souls being entirely encased in ice. They are embodied in the pavement. They are entirely without movement. We cannot converse with them, but only observe them as we would look at some inanimate object. The souls seem to have been cast into the ice randomly. Some are upright and others lying flat, others upside down, and still others bent in half. They are like garbage that has been frozen in water, stuck wherever it landed. They've thrown away what made them human, and now they are tossed into the pit of hell, a sort of human litter. Behold there, dis. Hell, like heaven, is a personal reality, according to Dante. Heaven is heaven because of who is there, because of the vision of God. He makes heaven what it is. It isn't a perfect place, but rather a relationship between the soul and God. The relationship that defines the rational creature's existence and happiness. We are blessed in heaven because we see God. We become like him, for we see him as he is. At the core of hell is Satan, Dis, the rejecter of God, who is the source of all bliss. Hell is hell, not because of where it is, but because of whom is rejected. It is hell because God is missing. The absence of the infinite good is the greatest absence of all. Satan has been intruded in this place, but God is the only good that can satisfy the longing of our hearts. Without him, we are left unfulfilled and aching for more. Without the possibility of seeing him, we have no chance of happiness or human completeness. That is why the gates of hell, as seen in Canto 3, tell all who approach them, saying, "Abandon all hope, you who enter here." Boethius was thrown in prison by the emperor he had served, Theodoric. And while waiting his execution, he had the opportunity to contemplate what seemed to be a great act of injustice, of the abuse of power by someone in authority. But Boethius argued for a very different and perhaps unexpected conclusion, that evil is powerless. All human beings desire happiness, and happiness is attained only by acting virtuously. Evil people want happiness, but will never achieve it. The wicked busy themselves with what gives pleasure, without being able to achieve their real objective. They might seem to be in charge, but they are in fact condemned to perpetual frustration. They can never get what they most deeply desire. That is powerlessness. In line 28, Satan is both enormous. He even dwarfs the giants, but also surprisingly powerless. He is trapped in the ice up to his waist, immobilized. And we are reminded of the impressive stature of Satan as a creature. He was created to be something great and splendid. God showered him with the unthinkable gifts. But because of his rebellion, his beauty as an angel of light, Lucifer, has been lost. In line 34 it says, "He was as fair as he is ugly now." What an amazing loss. Satan, who wanted to be like God, is now a monstrous parody of the Trinity. 3 faces on one head. This is yet another instance of hell being the inversion of heaven. One of the spiritual maxims St. Philip Neri would repeat to his disciples was, "Men are generally the carpenters of their own crosses." We might imagine that our sufferings are inflicted by an unfeeling universe or a vengeful God, but a large number of them are self-inflicted. Part of the reason a loving God delivers commandments is that he knows, far better than we will in this life, that acting in certain ways will produce pain and suffering. And out of love for us, he intervenes to help prevent that pain. But when we refuse to let go of the sin, the pain remains with us. It's the side effect of our twisted choice. In line 44, Satan retains the triple set of angelic wings described by the prophets, enormous but hideous. Nothing is left of their angelic glory except their size. They are like the wings of bats, black and scaly. The flapping of these wings is what turns the water of the rivers of hell that flow into the pit into ice. Satan, therefore, is imprisoned precisely because of his own actions. God doesn't inflict this ice upon Satan. Satan produces it himself. He is his own jailer. The flapping of his wings freezes the ice that traps him, but nevertheless continues to flap. His actions produce his sufferings, but still he cannot stop. It is part of Satan's punishment, perhaps the most painful part, that his plans are constantly frustrated. Regardless of what he sets out to do, the opposite happens. No matter how much he tries to rebel or stand in the way of God's plan, he only succeeds in being an instrument of God's will, and also an instrument of his own damnation. He is a horrible reminder of the way in which our own sins trap us in our own unhappiness, in limiting our freedom and defacing our beauty. We are the architects of so many of our sufferings, but even when we realize this, we seem unable to change. We too can feel stuck just as firmly as he is. Milton's Satan is one of the greatest characters in literature. Powerful, compelling, and undeniably attractive. His speech rallying the fallen angels in the first book of Paradise Lost is riveting. It is hard to imagine not being moved by it. He is a powerful and defiant arch-fiend, the ultimate villain that action movies and comic books try to replicate. He has a plan for world dominance, and he's ready for battle. But perhaps Milton's picture of Satan tells us more about the power of evil in our world than about his personal state. What is really left of an angel of light once he has rejected the light who made him? And how much of his angelic splendor would survive his fall from heaven? If Dante's reader were waiting for the great encounter with Satan, expecting lively debate and a show of power, the actual meeting would be an enormous disappointment. Here, Satan is not glorious or interesting. He is viewed in his full emptiness and stupidity. Seen face to face, he is repulsive. He weeps and chews and drools and flaps. It seems mechanical, mindless, and endlessly dull, quite an anticlimax to Dante's dramatic journey. How different this is from the vision of God with which the blessed souls are rewarded. In God we are infinite riches, infinite truth. We can gaze for all of time and never exhaust the supply. He is infinitely interesting. The vision we have of him transforms us, lifts us up, makes us like him. Experiencing that vision, we can desire nothing else, because there's nothing else that is desirable that isn't included in God. He is all. But Satan isn't remotely interesting or satisfying. And we don't get to talk with him any more than we were able to talk to the souls embedded in the ice. He's too far gone. Dante rightly passes over him rather quickly, giving him far less attention than many of the sinners we met above. And the further down we get, the less there is to see. Because we get closer and closer to nothingness. We are reminded that sin is ultimately empty, boring, foolish, and unsatisfying. As Virgil will tell Dante in a few lines, it's time to leave, for hell has nothing more for us to see. God gave himself for us to eat, his flesh for our salvation. His gift of himself in the Eucharist is an outward and visible sign of the infinite love God has for his creatures, and of the lengths to which he will go to save us. He was willing to give us himself for our sake. Satan, on the contrary, consumes his minions, grinding them with his teeth. Even though they did his work on earth, they received no gratitude, no reward. They have received their reward on earth. They betrayed their benefactors. Why should they expect anything better from the one they served? If the chewing were not bad enough, his claws flay their flesh, calling to mind the scourging of our Lord at the pillar. In line 61, the three sinners in the mouth of Satan betrayed not just any benefactor, but the benefactor, God himself, who has given to each creature all that it has, even its very being. Both Cassius and Brutus betrayed God by betraying Caesar, who, as emperor, was God's instrument on earth. Judas is the worst of the three because he betrayed God, incarnate, not merely his earthly representative. Perhaps that is why he alone is head first in Satan's mouth. In the movie Passion of the Christ, Satan howls when he realizes that his conspiring to bring about the death of our Lord has in fact resulted in the price being paid for our salvation. All of his work to destroy God's plan has only served to achieve it. One simply cannot rebel against an all-powerful God. No creature can stand outside of God's influence. We have power only insofar as it flows to us from Him. That is what being a creature means, and that is why His will is always done. In line 70, Virgil uses Satan, timing the flapping of Satan's wings, as they seem to be flapping automatically. Virgil treats Satan as a ladder, climbing down his matted, clumped, and frozen fur. Satan, yet again, despite his own intentions, becomes an instrument of God's plan and Dante's salvation. It seems to be Satan's worst punishment. The more he attempts to thwart God's will, the more he serves to bring it about. Dante becomes bewildered when Virgil turns around and begins to go up. Dante thinks that they are returning to hell, but in fact they have merely passed the center of the earth, the point to which all gravity tends. To go further down would require one to go up. Dante begins to understand as they arrive at the opening in the rock, a sort of cavern, and they see Satan's legs sticking up into the air, and they are now in the southern hemisphere. They will follow a passageway carved out by flowing water over the centuries. The river that eroded this rock had poured into the pit of hell will be identified only later. They are now ascending to the opposite side of the earth from the point at which they entered hell. Satan, being cast out of heaven to earth, has left an impact crater, which is the pit of hell. The material displaced has been pushed to the opposite side of the earth, forming an enormous mountain in the southern hemisphere, the mountain that Ulysses was in sight of when his ship went down, Mount Purgatory. In other words, Satan's fall not only formed hell, but also purgatory, by which souls can ascend towards heaven. Satan again is acting as an instrument of salvation, and as St. Paul said, all things cooperate unto good. In line 128, it is dark. It is sound that guides them, the sound of a small stream. This stream, as we shall discover in Purgatorio, is the last of the 4 rivers of the classical underworld, the river Lethe. At the top of Purgatory, the souls of the just wash in this river, cleansing them of the burden of their sins and hurts. The river drains away the pain and the remembrance of pain, and empties into hell. Following this stream, a stream of forgetfulness and forgiveness, Dante and Virgil make their way to the surface. How would we have the courage to make such a climb without the continual assurance of God's assistance and forgiveness? Even when we cannot see our way, God's forgiveness provides hope and direction and the promise of a new life. Freedom. For those who are imprisoned, hospitalized, immobilized by infirmity, or held hostage by tyranny, there is no sweeter word, no greater promise. We dream of being freed from our burdens, and there is no greater burden than the yoke of sin. Some of the great joys in beginning to live a spiritual life seriously are the little victories we achieve over long-standing habits. Each victory, though small in itself, is a taste of freedom, a glimpse of the way life can be. It promises us that we are not condemned to live with these burdens forever. There is a way out of the darkness, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. John 8:32. In line 135, hearing the sound of the stream, realizing that they are approaching the light, Virgil and Dante are reinvigorated. They are eager to keep moving, pushing ahead, to go back to the world of light and without any care to rest at ease. Dante experiences some sort of deliverance from sin. A burden has been lifted from his shoulders, and he can taste the freedom, and nothing can be allowed to stand in his way. And after the claustrophobic darkness of hell, what a great relief to be in the open, to see the stars, to be able to redirect one's sights upwards again, toward the light. Triumph over sin is the only way to true freedom. Sin makes us a smaller sort of thing, limiting our possibilities, hindering our happiness, and impeding our progress to our final goal. Sin makes us slaves. Dante had entered hell because he had lost his way in the dark woods. By his experience of hell, by seeing firsthand the destructive power of sin and the emptiness of evil, Dante is now ready to face the light. He knows that the only path to happiness is the steep and narrow road, but he is determined now to make that climb. He hopes his reader is ready as well, because this journey is one that every human soul must make. Life eternal depends upon it. Thank you for joining me in this reading of this wonderful book by Father Pearson. May you find many blessings and inspiration with it. God bless.